Welcome to the Scale Model Podcast. In this podcast, we aim to entertain, inform, and promote the hobby of scale model kit building with interviews, reviews, and news about the hobby. The Scale Model Podcast is currently recorded bi-weekly and is available where your favorite podcasts are found, including iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, as well as our website at www.scalemodelpodcast.com. Let us know if you have any comments or suggestions at scalemodelpodcast@gmail.com or at our Facebook page at facebook.com/scalemodelpodcast. We also publish extra video content on our YouTube channel, and we also have a Patreon page at patreon.com/scalemodelpodcast. The money raised will be used to help offset web hosting and other costs. As the podcast grows, we hope to introduce giveaway and other bonuses to our Patreon supporters as a thank you for supporting the Scale Model Podcast. Welcome to episode 22 of the Scale Model Podcast, sponsored by Goodman Models. My name is Stuart Clark, and I'm here once again with our good friend, our co-host, our Mr. Gundam, all things Japanese and giant robots, Mr. Anthony Goodman.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello. Okay, quite a lot of news. Absolute ton of stuff. We've got shows. We've got on like two hemispheres of the planet. We've got a lot of new releases, all sorts
a lot of stuff going on. It's great.
Absolute ton of stuff. It's hard to believe that Torcan took place a couple of weeks ago already.
Yeah, it feels like a long time ago, doesn't it?
Exactly. And I want to give some shout out to some people who definitely, Ice Axe Miniatures, who posted a nice thing about us. Actually,
Yes,
more
thank you.
about you. More about you. I wasn't mentioned.
Yeah.
That's all right.
I do appreciate the kind words. That was actually I missed you. I don't know what you look like, but he did do a nice roundup.
Yep.
And then he mentioned specifically Goodman Models and that he picked up a set. So thank you for buying the set, and I hope you enjoy them on your model build. And yeah, thanks. That was a great show, and the Peel Scale Modelers Club, they did a fantastic job on that show.
Exactly. Alrighty. Okay, we're gonna get right into the news because we've also got an interview we recorded 2 weeks ago. We want to get into. So absolute ton of stuff. So I'm going to actually start off with Wingnut Wings. They had 2 pages they've updated on their website with some more shots of their 1/32 scale Lancaster build.
Yeah.
So this is the Dam Buster edition as well as the Mark III. So a ton more reference pictures, a ton more images of the models. Definitely check it out if you're interested in this.
It looks so good, eh?
Oh, it does. It looks like, again, I would love one, but money, and where the heck would I put it? That's, again, my continuing lament, shall we say. So we'll just leave it at that. We're going to talk about a little bit about them at the Melbourne Model Expo in Australia in a little while. We'll talk about some of the stuff there. Moving on from a Facebook group called Hobby Center, Bill's Hobby Center. It looks like we have a release date for the Airfix Hellcat, June 26th. So Bill at Bill's Hobby Center managed to sneak into the distributor and managed to open one up and show us what it looks like. So again, if you're into the World War II cat, shall we say, the big cat, this looks very nice. Again, another one I'd love to get my hands on, but I just have no room to put it anywhere. Looks like it's going to be a nice kit. I know a lot of people are waiting for this. So check that out, of course. Moving on.
Great.
It's going to be awesome. Moving on, Atalery has some 5 of their new releases for the June preview. This is from our good friends at the Modeling News. As usual, all sorts of different things from the Italian manufacturer. First off is a big rig, a Mercedes-Benz Actros MP4 Giga Space. This is a darn nice looking rig by Mercedes-Benz.
I love the decal design on there. That's really cool. Yeah. The wolf.
Yep. Actros is their commercial name for their Mercedes-Benz heavy truck range. It was introduced in '95, and it's really designed for long-distance haulage and heavy duties. This one here was introduced to the market in 2012. Adoption of new Euro 5 and Euro 6 engines, 124 scale, 26.9 centimeters, or 26 centimeters looks like long and 9 centimeters wide.
60, makes sense.
Yeah, big. It's a big beast, 66 euros. as you were saying, the decal sheet, absolutely gorgeous decal
Just
sheet.
stunning, eh?
Yep, lots of chrome parts, lots of different license plate selections. Looks like most of the countries in the EU. Mesh for your grill. Some very nicely detailed sprue parts. So I'm sure this will keep the truck builders happy.
I can't wait to see some trucks that we don't see a lot of trucks at the shows that we've been to.
Well, they are
So, have
there.
you?
Yeah, well, you know what? We always seem to get at our local show in London. We always seem to get quite a few, more than
Okay.
I always expect. And there was a couple there. They seem to be around. It's definitely one. Well, I call it, at least in this area, the more quieter market. We don't have that many people in the local club who
Yeah.
builds them, but they are around and they do sell. If I talk to the people in the store, so people are buying them.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I'd like to see. I hope to see more of the shows.
Yeah, exactly. No, there was some neat stuff. Actually, our friends at On the Bench in Australia, a couple episodes ago, they did an interview with a guy who builds them, and that was quite fascinating.
Yeah, that was a
Uh,
great,
yep,
great episode.
great show. So definitely check that one out. Moving on, as part of Vitalery's partnership with War Thunder, the video game, they've got a 1/72 scale Ju-88A4 German medium bomber. So again, looks like I don't know if it's a repop from someone else, but they're advertising it as a limited edition. But it also comes with a base for the model, full color instructions, plus a code, of course, and of course a tube of glue. As well, you get some bonus codes if you play the video game. Again, they're trying to get people interested in both. So it looks like you're going to get a couple of premium fighters, premium account. Yeah, nice looking kit. I'm sure it's an old
Yeah, good package.
repop, but again, if it gets people interested, why not? Moving on, the Mirage F1. This one's actually called the Bye Bye Mirage F1. So this is probably one of the decal versions. Is one of the last ones in service, I would bet. So yeah, an older aircraft. It was in service beginning of the 70s. Delta wing, very unique. So yeah, kind of cool. Looks like 3 different versions, including all with the French Air Force, including some that served in June up to June 2014. So fairly recent. Yeah, so there we go. Nice looking kit.
Great schemes to choose from too. They're
Yeah.
all kind of like colorful and very interesting, I think, for the
hmm
modeler.
hmm It's 40 euros, 1/48 scale, if I didn't mention that. So it's a good size. Not bad at all. Moving on, we talked a little bit about Sherman's last show. Here's another one. The M4A1 with some U.S. infantry, 1/35 scale, 36 euros. Includes 10 figures.
That's great.
Yep. Rubber tracks. New. Now, they call this their new gluable rubber tracks. So maybe, unlike the old days when you had the rubber tracks that literally I had to use a staple on when I was a kid because no glue would work on them. Seriously.
I was reading something recently about like heating up something like a screwdriver and then trying to balloon
you
the
can
little
try that.
tabs.
Sometimes that would work. In the end, I said a lot of bad language, and I
Yep.
stapled the damn thing, and I made sure the staple was on top hidden. So, yeah, that's quite quite the interesting thing. Ton of schemes. Looks like three more schemes. One that served in Italy, a couple in Normandy, which is appropriate since we're at the 75th anniversary of D-Day.
Yeah.
So looks very nice. Yeah, not much more I can say.
Looks great.
All right, moving on.
Yeah. What's next?
A little Fiat 500. This is the little subcompact thing that came out in 2007. All jokes witstanding about, like if you want to give it a wash, you just put it in the washing machine with your socks. It's not that small, but yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
it's an attractive looking 2-door car. These seem to be very popular amongst some builders. Again, some people don't just want sports cars; they want just how they look and all that.
I love the passenger car idea. I do have one in my stash of kits for sure.
Exactly.
Not this, but a passenger car
right. So this
subject.
this is 1/24 scale, 29 euros.
Yeah.
Looks like one scheme with a bunch of different license plates, so you can do whatever
Yeah,
part
and
of the
there's
EU
probably
you
a bunch
want.
of colors it was released in.
Yep, yep. They got some suggestions, but you can do whatever color you want. So that
Hmm.
looks good as well. Some of the pictures here they show it very attractive in a nice yellow color, so like a little
Yeah,
bumblebee basically. So that
very
is
cool.
that's from our good friends at Tallery. Moving on, we have Hobby Boss. Some new announcements out of there. Um, so first off, the Soviet BT-2 tank and 135th scale. These were produced between 32 and 41, lightly armored, well armed for their time. If you're big into Russian tanks, this is
Be for that.
basically
That's pretty cool.
this is what came before the famous T-34. So
Ah,
this is
okay.
what they used before, and the T-34 basically did the whole thing again. So you've got a nice little setup here. Let me see here. 14 sprues, photo etch parts, 260 parts.
Hmm.
Looks very nice. Nice
Oh, a
indeed.
decal sheet for those stripes on the
Yep.
turret there.
Yep.
Yeah,
Stuff like that.
great.
So yeah, pretty nice. Pretty nice looking if you're into Russian armor. Okay, moving on. A slightly more unusual subject. This is another 148 scale F-14.
Oh,
The
cool.
difference is this is the Persian Cat. This was the only other uh, country that used the F-14, which was Iran.
Yeah,
Back in the 70s, the Shah of Iran made a deal with the United States. They wanted to be able to intercept MiG 25 reconnaissance flights that were coming over.
yes,
Because at the time, the MiG 25 could go so high and so fast, there was nothing the Iranians had that could reach it.
yeah.
So in the end, they bought, I believe, 80 plus 714 Phoenix missiles, which was, the missile designed to work with the Tomcat over
Hmm.
100-mile-an-hour range. Again, the F-14 was designed as an interceptor. It was designed
Yeah,
to, stop mass waves of Soviet bombers or attack aircraft against, carrier fleets or whatever.
yeah,
Obviously, with the fall of the Shah of Iran, relations kind of soured, but
yep.
apparently there's still a few running. A lot of them have been cannibalized.
Really?
Yep. But during the
Yeah.
Iran-Iraq war, they actually did over 50 kills. So
Wowza.
yeah, very, very, very good percentage. Only one was damaged at that point, but they're still known to be a couple flying. But
Yeah,
it's definitely showing its age, as we know the U.S. have retired them now. So this isn't
yeah.
a big 148 scale. You get
It's gonna be a nice kit.
going to be a very nice kit. You get two two schemes actually for that, both with the Iranian Air Force. 22 sprues, 390 parts, 397 meters. So like again, a good size. Bubble shaped
Yeah.
canopy, variable wing sweep. You can adjust the flaps, something you can't do in the Tamiya one. I'm just pointing that out. And
Huh,
others have
interesting.
pointed that out. Lots of missiles, fuel tanks, a lot of photo etch parts, including the radar. So it looks like you can display it with the nose open. So that looks
Yeah,
quite.
very cool.
Again, for those of
So,
you who are
something
into that.
interesting for the listeners is that I was reading that the batch of the block of F-14s that were sold to Iran, the Americans stripped out all the
Oh
like
yeah,
the state-of-the-art
yep,
avionics before handing them over, and they put in kind of
yeah,
some older basic
yeah,
stuff.
exactly. Because they had a very revolutionary radar
Yeah,
for
they
the
wanted to
time.
keep the secrets
Yeah, it
secret.
could track like 24 targets at once. For back then
Yeah.
was just revolutionary. But again, the Iranians managed to make very, very good use of them. And again, they were
Mm-hmm.
still in fairly recent news. Oh, before I forget, I know our good
Mm-hmm.
friends at On the Bench, in their last regular show, they were talking about a MiG 31, and they were David, I believe, was trying to remember if the MiG 31 was the reason why the F 15 was adjusted and produced. And it was actually the MiG 31 is based on the MiG 25, the Foxbat. So
Mm-hmm.
the Foxbat, when it came, the rumors of it, that's where the Americans really designed the F 15. They wanted to make sure it could contend
Ah,
potentially with the Foxbat. Now, in the end,
yeah.
the Foxbat was an ideal reconnaissance plane. It went very, very, very fast, very, very, very high, but in terms of its maneuverability, it really sucked. Like it would do like at Mach 3, it would do like to do a 180-degree turn, would probably take 50 miles, sort of thing.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't
So it's
designed as a
tough to.
dogfighter in the end, but again, the U.S. it turned out well because the U.S. got themselves the F-15. So
Mm-hmm.
which still serves rather well. Okay, moving on.
Wonderful.
Yeah, moving on. Our good friends at Revell, no, Trumpeter, I should say. Trumpeter Germany, or Trumpeter Germany, no, Trumpeter China. Actually, this was the one actually David was talking about, and
Yes.
one of these ones down here. So I'm really briefly going to touch these. So the first one is a ballistic missile system. The NATO reporting names the SS-26 Stone, mobile short range, produced and deployed by the Russian Federation. And as we said before, I love the look of some of these trucks. They could be so modified for sci-fi,
Oh,
um,
for sure. Yeah.
different things. So again, you got a couple of different schemes there. This thing is, like I said, short range. So it just doesn't carry nukes, but all sorts of other nasty things to make the opposition have a bad day. Clusters munition, fuel air explosive enhanced blast warhead, a high explosive fragmentation warhead, an earth penetrator for bunker busting, and a
Wow.
electromagnetic pulse devices for anti-radar missions. So yeah. Oh, it can carry nukes. Okay, sorry, I stand corrected. Again,
Wow.
why would you want a short-range nuke? Don't. Yeah, just yeah. It's
Yep.
like
For neighborly relations.
neighborly. I know, but the problem is depending on what the range is, right? Do you really want to shoot this thing if you're going to be affected by the blast, right?
Yes.
It's like a nuclear hand grenade. Why?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
comes with 20 sprues, cabs, tires, lots of photo etch, little copper.
Do I see masks? It gives you a sheet of masks for all the windows.
I believe. Let me go back. Yes, yes,
That's
it
a
does.
neat feature of
Yeah, a
this
lot
kit.
of a lot of the trumpeter kits are doing that now. So,
Okay.
yep,
Very
there we
cool.
go.
Good on Trumpeter.
Moving on to a battleship, the SMS Schweizwick Holstein. It was the last of the 5 Deutschland class battleships. This was built in 1905. It actually lasted through to the Second World War, and then it was, I believe, used as a target vessel by the
Hmm.
Russians at the end. But the bell's still on display at the History Museum in Dresden. So there you go. That's not bad.
Very
1/350th
cool.
scale, metal anchor chain. Uh, yeah, 2 parts, deck wood pattern, finely rendered, contains a display stand. Again, for those who like building these ones, these are kind of neat too. These have a lot of fans for that era.
Hmm.
Okay, yeah, the MiG 31. This is what it here. I know our good friends David and the gang at On the Bench have covered it, but yeah, this is basically a MiG 25 Mark II, really. So basically it's a MiG
What do
25.
we?
It's a MiG
Sorry.
sorry, it's a MiG 31 on steroids. Or MiG
Okay.
25 on steroids because it can carry a lot more effective payloads.
Yep.
So this is basically this is a more dangerous aircraft. So it also carries what's known as a hypersonic missile. So it's a very fast missile, very dangerous. Again, you're not going to get into a guns close in range dogfight, but yeah, it's very highly respected, shall we say?
Yeah.
And
And
it's
this is
also
still very current, right?
this
I'm
is
reading
very
2018.
yeah, this is very current. So the actual missile, its purporting name is Dagger. It can go up to between Mach 10 and Mach 12, and it's nuclear capable.
Wow.
It can go more than 2,000 kilometers. So yeah,
Oh,
this thing is quite the thing. And again, it's all about response time, right?
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's the name of the game these days.
Yeah. So basically, the MiG 31 isn't like what they had in the movie Firefox,
Hmm.
but this is actually known as Foxhound. So yeah, it's designed to replace the 25, but it's got a lot of design elements. It's a very fast aircraft. They expect it to remain in service past 2030.
Hmm.
So that's not bad considering they started making it in '79 actually. So yeah, very well used airframe and a very successful thing for our friends at the Red Air Force. So anyway, this is the 1/72nd scale by Trumpeter, 210 parts. So that's a lot of parts.
Yeah.
Full decals, a lot of numbering schemes. You can basically make whatever number you want. They give you the full numbers and lettering and all that for that. So again, very nice one from that. Last but not least is the Russian TOS multiple rocket launcher, 1989. This is 1/35th scale, so it's basically a rocket launcher enclosed on a T-72 tank chassis. So TOS-1 was designed for defeating enemy personnel in fortifications, open country, and lightly armored vehicles. So yeah, it looks like it was tested in Afghanistan, and then it was shown to the public in 1999. So again, fairly new. 28 sprues, photo etched, 1,000 parts. Yeah, individual tracks. You think?
Yep.
With 1,000 parts, you think individual tracks? I would think so. So
Indy Links all the way.
Indy
yeah, it looks
Links.
Nice though.
Yeah, it's a nice looking beast. Again, you could easily modify that for something sci-fi. They always, like I said, they always do some cool stuff. Okay, moving on. We have so much news, so we're just blasting through it here.
We are rocking.
Revell, Germany, June 2019. As normal, they have a lot of different things. So first off is the 1/35th scale Dingo 2. This is a German light transport vehicle, kind of similar to the Humvee, I guess, but all sorts of options on it. So they use these in Afghanistan. 237 parts, 30 euros, 175 millimeters. Builds up to a nice looking thing. Looks like it comes with a little gun mount with a mortar and all that. Nicely detailed interior. Yeah, so kind of cool.
Oh, very nice, yeah.
Okay, for the car guys, this probably is a repop too. 56 Chevy Custom, 124 scale, 98 parts, 30 euros with the Chevy Bel Air. So this is a 56 Bel Air. Manufactured from 53 onwards, was well suited as a base for conversion work. So basically they've taken this, made it look like a hot rod. You can go custom or stock car versions, a lot of chrome parts, with flame decals and all that good stuff.
It looks very sharp.
Yeah, very, very, very nice. Even the little gear shift ball, the ball on the gear shift.
That's cool.
Exactly. Okay, moving on. This is a couple of releases here. This is the B25 Mitchell. This is part of their new Easy Kit line. This is really designed to get the younger modelers involved. So basically, it is 10 euros, so $15, 1/72nd scale of a B25 Mitchell. No painting required because it's multicolor parts, and basically it snaps together. But it's very. They call it an easy click system. So apparently it's much better. Joined together, and you basically have stickers, rotating propellers, 2 pilots, etc. No gluing necessary, and it builds up to a fairly attractive look.
That looks great. Yeah,
something for the kids.
It looks great.
Yeah, it looks. This is awesome. So for 15 euros, definitely kind of cool. I could see that being used like a make and take. So apparently they're gonna have a few more of these out as well. So we're gonna see a few more of those. Now this one I know a few people were very excited about. I think I saw this one at the DoorCat, one of the boxes. Either that or a photo of it, but people were talking about this. This is the 1/32nd scale FW190, the A8, the Sternbach edition. So big model, 282 millimeters, 327 millimeter wingspan, 40 euros, 168 parts. This was designed to go up against the American heavy bombers. So it had 30 millimeter cannons in the wings, as well as additional armor. So yeah, this thing wasn't a dogfighter. This was designed to go after the bombers.
Wow.
Had a BMW 801 radial engine. So all sorts of different things. Choice of several cockpit hoods. Detailed cockpit rear tail wheel can be built extended or retracted. That's something you don't see all the time, actually. Some of the aircraft did have retractable tail wheels, and this builds up to a fairly nice looking thing. This looks like even the engine panels can be opened. So again,
that's great for that price point. That's a lot of features.
Yep. So basically, 2 different versions that were in May 44 and October. So definitely check that out. Okay, one more from the Easy Kit line. If World War II planes aren't your thing, how about an F4E Phantom in 1/72nd scale as part of the Easy Kit line? Only 24 parts, but again, 10 euros, $15. And again, builds up quite nicely. You don't have to paint it, but you can if you want. And this looks good just right out of the box. Not bad at all. And best
20,
of all,
did you mention the parts count? 24?
Yeah. And best of all, there's not 10,000 stencils like in that RAF Phantom.
Yeah. This is a really great idea because They are too. I know my son who's 6 has been asking about building his own
Yep.
car or something like that. I'm like, man, I gotta find something that's snap.
You know
He
what?
can't be
Check
messing around with glue and
go up to our local store,
yep,
Brochdale. They've got the Airfix line, and it's like an easy, but it's basically Lego.
snap kit.
It's like Lego, right? That
Yeah,
sort of idea, and it's very good. He might like that for his age.
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. They're saying these ones are for, I think they said 10 and above.
10, yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
we're sort of gearing up to this, but
Yep.
yeah, there's obviously a few age range entry series from the different manufacturers,
Yeah.
and I'm sure Santa will be stopping by the hobby
That's
shop
good. That's good.
come
Santa
Christmas
loves the
time.
hobby shop. Exactly. Okay, and we're finishing up with this is an old kit. This is an old repop. The Viking Ghost Ship.
Oh,
They're
okay.
easy, and again another easy kit, but it glows in the dark. It
Yeah,
actually
that's
this
fun.
one comes with glue, a brush, and some glow in the dark paint.
Hmm.
I remember stuff like this years ago. You'd get the what was it? AMT did a Star Trek like UFO intruder, and it
Yeah.
glowed
No,
in the
that was the
dark.
Leif Erikson, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
that
the
sort of thing.
intruder one that
Yeah,
glowed, but it was
yeah,
really the
and
Leif
had the
Erikson,
little
which was
shuttle.
from
What was it?
something.
Something from? Yeah, but it had like the glow in the dark. You wondered how radioactive it was,
Yeah,
back
there's
then,
something
right?
in there.
But yeah, this is night glow paint and brush. When illuminated, the light is stored and emitted again. So yeah, basically the same thing. You get some yarn, little dragon head. So yeah, kind of cool.
It's
It's
fun, something
in
different.
its own night color. Yeah, little photorescent paint. So
Very
that's kind of
cool.
cool. So that's kind of neat as well from Airfix. Okay, moving right along. Oh, I did want to mention one other thing from Revell that I noticed. It was in one of their product things. This is the Revell Land Rover Series 3. The reason I'm talking about this is because my dad had one of these in England.
Oh,
And the
cool.
picture they have was in that color. Pretty well the same thing, a Series
Excellent.
3. So now this one here, they're showing is the station wagon edition. It was a slightly longer wheelbase, but it's kind of cool. So I had to throw it in there. It's 30 euros, only 105 parts. But at some point, I might have to get my hands on one of these. So
Right on.
that's why it's in there. Okay, moving right along. Let's see here. Okay, what else were we talking about? Oh yeah, I went right by Atlantis Models. Atlantis Models, they got some more pre-orders. Atlantis is the ones that are buying up. They bought up a lot of the old companies and they're repopping them basically.
Yep.
Some really cool things. So this month they've got under pre-order. They've got the Mr. Gasser Ed Big Daddy Roth Ed Roth.
Hmm.
His Gasser model. Now this thing is ancient, but
Yeah, this is a 60s kind of
this is a
vintage,
60.
right?
Yeah, this is Ed Roth was a very famous artist and designer and all that. And
Yep.
he was in a lot of the magazines from back then. He was an artist and had all these really cool hot rod stuff. So he also was a custom car designer. So
Yeah.
he created the hot rod icon, Rat Fink and all that. So guys the car guys know who I'm talking about. So this is a
Yep.
kid of his
Yeah, he's quite well. I think a lot
yeah,
of people
yeah,
sort of know,
know of
any
him.
general model history kind of
I
he's
think
come
the
up
older guys,
before.
yeah. Some of the younger guys, maybe not unless you're into cars, but yeah,
I'm
this
thinking of
is
like Rommel's Hot Rod, that one as
yeah,
well,
that
I think was Ed Roth.
sort of thing. He's done a lot of stuff. So this is one of his other ones he's coming out with. So it looks like it's going to be at least from the Atlanta store, 2198, 132nd scale. Pre-order should ship in about 4 weeks. Metal axles and decal sheet for the car and the monster eyeball. So yeah,
He's
it's
fun.
kind of looks like
A
it's
blast from the past, right?
an absolute blast in the past, and as well, for again considering one of these odd scales, the USS-4 Sherman in 132nd scale. So this is the classic Revell tooling, which was now owned by Atlantis, and
Hmm.
if and I gotta look up to see how old this thing. This thing's gotta be late 50s, early 60s.
Wow.
Gotta be.
Vintage.
Yeah, but again, people are 1968.
It's
Uh,
fun to revisit
yep.
things,
Well,
right?
and
From
again,
your childhood or
Atlantis
formative
obviously
years.
feels they've got a market there.
Yeah.
They've been buying some other stuff and re-releasing some stuff. So, yeah, there's definitely something, particularly with the baby boomers and that. As a lot of people that want to rebuild these kits from when they were a kid. So yeah, this one looks like it's going to be fun as well. So moving on. Oh yes, we have from Kinetic. You found this one. This is the E2C Hawkeye. This is the Japanese Self-Defense Force. This is in commemoration of their anniversary. And we don't know yet whether it's a repop from the 2010 molds or something new. Looks like it's got some new parts. It's going to be released.
Decal scheme.
New decal scheme. Going to be in July. Kinetic makes some nice stuff. I'd love to get one of these at some point, but they are very big, like some of the Navy ones. So this will be $111 Canadian out of our good friends at HobbyLink Japan. So yeah, this looks interesting. Yeah, as you say, some very nice schemes.
Yeah, it's very sharp looking, and it's a great iconic bird. I always loved it. I know people always really enjoy the fighters, but I like all the support aircraft.
Oh yeah,
I find often.
Exactly. Also, one you found, Anthony. This is the 32nd scale. This is a conversion kit. This converts your starfighter, your big ass starfighter that's in 1/32nd scale, to an NF-104A, and it's from Model Art. Now,
yeah, I wonder if this is resin.
For $115, I would think so.
Yeah, most of the conversion stuff would be.
Now, a little bit of history about this. So the starfighter, the F-104, was always considered the missile with a man in it, and it was known as the Widowmaker because it was a very, you look at the wings on this thing, and it's basically they slapped a couple of wings and some altitude control on a bloody engine, and turned it loose. Well, this took it to a new stage. This was a supersonic aerospace trainer that NASA bought a couple of these from the Air Force, and they used it as a training vehicle for both the X-15 and the projected the X-20, the Boeing, a lot of experimental stuff.
It's very cool.
Yeah, so this was all done between 63 and 71. So basically, you imagine your starfighter, which is already pretty fast, right? Kelly Johnson, who designed the Blackbird, actually designed this thing. So it was done by Lockheed at the Skunk Works. They built 3 of them. So basically, they slapped on a small rocket engine off the back end and a reaction control system for flight in the stratosphere. The reason you have to do that is this thing went so high that the air became so thin that traditional, controls on the wings and stuff like that, control surfaces, wouldn't work. So this thing set a record, 120,000 feet. So
wow,
36,000 meters. So 36 kilometers up this thing went. And actually, one of them was destroyed. It was being flown by General Chuck Yeager, who had to punch out of this one because he then had a bad day.
But he did recover from that.
Oh yes, survive, he's correct? Still around, General Yeager. Yep. No, like I said, it was quite the thing. Actually, I remember General Yeager a couple of years ago. He had there's a video I've seen with him going up in a F-15 Strike Eagle.
Cool.
And he's like 90, like just quite the guy. Let me double checking here. Yeah, he's still with us. He's 96.
Oh, good! Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I haven't heard anything about him.
No, but he's
passing that we mentioned. So yeah, he's what an interesting career that guy had.
Oh yeah, no, he's still he's still considered reserve and all that. And no, they had him up a couple of years back I think it was in celebration of him breaking the sound barrier. And yeah, basically, I'm trying to remember how long ago. Had to be for an anniversary, probably the 50th. But yeah, he's flown, right. You name it, he flew it. He was a test pilot. He flew, he broke the sound barrier. First guy to break the sound barrier. He was one of the first American pilots to fly a MiG-15, a captured one. So all sorts of things. Yeah, like I said, he actually
many firsts.
Yeah, he actually retired in 75. That's serving 33 years. He started in World War II. All sorts. He was still flying up until fairly recently. I'm just trying to find out. Here we go. In the 50th anniversary in 97, he flew an F-15D Eagle Pass Mach 1. So
wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and he also did.
And the original time was in the Bell X-1, correct?
Right. And then he did it again on the 65th anniversary in 2012 at 89. He flew in the backseat of an F-15 And you can see videos of that. That's pretty cool. Like I said, he still has it.
That's
So
amazing. Yeah.
very cool. A little bit of background there. So, yeah, I guess for people who are really into that, that's a steep price because I'm sure the original that doesn't include the base kit. That's just the conversion. So,
Yeah, just a conversion set. It definitely it looks like resin pieces. There's some shots there.
yeah,
It's mostly like it looks like the landing gear and the nose and some other
yeah,
additional
yeah, I would think so. Yeah, so
details.
yeah, pretty cool. Okay, moving on. Wonderfest happened. It was the
Yes,
30th
Wonderfest.
anniversary. Now you've been to Wonderfest before, right? So you can
Yes, a number
describe
of
it.
times. Yeah. It's a fantastic show, and yeah, the like we just mentioned, the 30th anniversary pass. So that's an annual show held in Louisville, Kentucky every year, and it's quite a big science fiction blowout. So it's
Hmm.
a lot of figure modeling and a lot of science fiction modeling.
Right.
So a lot of love for Star Trek, Japanese stuff like Gundam, a lot of like monster films and characters of that nature as
Hmm.
well.
Okay.
And I think there's some news about some new stuff coming out, right?
There is. So I'm just going to the ones that excites me is, and we've talked about it before, but we've got some sprue shots now from round two of their 1/72nd scale Eagle lander. So this is from Space 1999. So there's two links to it showing all the sprue shots. It's funny because I've got the MPC Hawk kit in
Hmm.
that scale I want to build fairly soon, but again, looks absolutely gorgeous. And this is a slightly smaller version of the one they previously released, which was a lot bigger. Uh,
So, as in they corrected the proportions, or
no, this is
is
a
it different
smaller
scale?
kit. Yeah, this is the 14-inch long one. They
Mhm.
previously released a large 22-inch one, but it's big. Like it's a bigger scale, and it's an off-scale number. I don't remember
Okay,
the
so
exact
this is
number. This
72nd
is
now, and then
72nd. Yeah,
scale
so
of the gods.
scale of the gods, as some would say.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's very cool. And then they talk about a little bit about part two details on how they assembled the spine for it and how they made it easy. So again, some very cool stuff out of that. And then Cult TV Man, you know more about this than I do. They do a lot of stuff, like you say, Star Trek, the old Aurora stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Lots of figures.
right. So they had a lot of different things. They had some sneak peeks from Wonderfest.
Hmm.
Looks like they had a Judy Robertson action figure from Lost in Space. Uh, I don't know why, but apparently you can build a model of the Bates Motel from Psycho.
Yeah, lots of, and that's another sort of popular subject is like movie
Yeah,
characters and iconic like props. Props is kind of another.
right.
Lots of Star Wars gets a lot of love there.
And I see you got some of the old monster stuff from the old Irwin Allen movies.
Yep.
Land of the Giants, giant snake, and a couple of dudes fighting it.
Hmm.
So yeah, so like yeah, because Irwin Allen, known as the Master of Disaster,
Yeah.
he's the one that came up with all those movies like the Towering Inferno and the Poseidon Adventure,
Yes.
all
Yeah.
that
Sort of
Earthquake,
70, 60,
all the
70s
70s. Yeah,
adventure.
yep, exactly. So he came
Yeah.
up with a lot of those. So yeah, it looks like they've got a lot of stuff there. I've also included in the show notes some links to some photo galleries, and again, simply some unbelievable stuff coming out of there.
Yeah. It's a
So
great show, and it's huge. It's sort of a multi-day event,
right,
and the tables are just packed, like
right.
hundreds and hundreds of models, and then the vendors giant. So it's much bigger than sort of an average local show. It's sort of has really taken on a huge life, and it's a very great
It's
event.
almost like nationals for sci-fi nerds.
Yeah, you know what? That's a pretty good description of that. So I can't wait. Hopefully next year I'll get to attend that weekend, and yeah, it's a real blast.
Very
There's
cool.
lots going on at it.
Okay, also in the land down under in Australia, the Australian Model Expo. That's an annual event in
Yeah.
Melbourne, weekend event. We're not going to delve too much into it because our good friends at On the Bench, if you do a search for On the Bench, you'll find them there.
And they
They
have a
act,
great review of
they
that
just released a
event.
show today, David, Ian, Julian, and the rest. So yeah, what I've got is I've got a couple of links up there. Looks like our boys down there actually did fairly well. Looks like they all placed
Yeah,
well, and
congratulations are in order.
congrats to that. So I've just put up a one link to the to someone's Google photo site. So again, some pretty cool things. But yeah, definitely check out On the Bench if you want some more coverage there of what happened in that one. Okay, moving on. Some hot kits at ScaleMates. One I don't think we talked about Starfighter, but Kinetic's coming out with a new 148 scale F104G from the Luftwaffe. So people are obviously talking about that. The Sukhoi Su-57 Fraser from Kitty Hawk. This looks sci-fi. It's a Russian fifth generation fighter. Looks like they're going to release it in 2020. Most of the usual suspects as well. Oh yeah, here's the Ming, the Wasp flamethrower Jeep. How about a Jeep and then you stick a bloody flamethrower on it?
Wow.
What's the worst that can happen? Really?
That's an interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of
interesting concept. Yeah.
Subject.
Just make sure you're shooting downwind. That's all I suggest.
Yeah, whoever got that job.
Yeah, just make sure you're checking the wind, or otherwise you're gonna have barbecue big time. Now, here's one I just looked at here. Lone Star Models. They're gonna be coming.
The privateer. Yeah,
that thing is gonna be huge. 148 scale.
Oh, that is massive.
Absolutely huge. Now, you know what? I think is it Matchbox did a privateer in 172nd, if I recall.
Okay.
Matchbox or Revell. I remember when I was a kid. Again, this is the great thing about ScaleMates. You can put a search in, and they probably have it. Full kits. Let's see here. Yeah, Matchbox did it. Yeah, here we go. 172nd scale, 1980. 1980. I remember this. And then actually, Revell Germany bought the molds, and they released it again in looks like 2009. So yeah.
But the same old 80 kit, so it was due for an overhaul.
Well, this is a different scale too, right? This is a much bigger scale, but I do remember this when I was a kid. It builds up fairly well, all things considered. Yeah. It's a nice looking plane.
I love that kind of. That looks like it's sort of the Pacific Theater.
Yeah, exactly. So
blue scheme. Yeah. I do. I love those birds.
148 will be expensive. Another one I'm surprised I haven't covered. Me being an Airfix fanboy and a Spitfire fanboy is the Spitfire, the Mark 14. Airfix has just released a new tool of the Mark 14, so that looks very nice in 48 scale. So yeah, at some point one of those will probably be on my shelf. I'm just gonna say that.
What's the FR code stand for?
See, now you're gonna make me look silly. I'm trying to remember now.
Not French or anything like that.
Nope,
French?
No, it had a meaning. And of course, all the Spitfire guys are gonna be screaming at me now.
They're telling us.
Yeah.
Is this something to do with the big scoops on the bottom?
No, it might be the engine. It was a Griffin engine. I think that's the main thing. I think it was the Griffin engine.
Okay.
I think that was they slightly changed it for that, but again, someone else will know. But yeah, this basically
for real.
Basically, yeah, they basically took it's still a Rolls-Royce engine, but it wasn't a Merlin engine. It was a brand new Griffin engine.
Okay.
And it was actually really good. One of the things they used it a lot was against the V1s. The buzz bomb, the flying bombs, the unguided missiles.
Intercept them in the air?
Yeah, they had the speed for it. And one of the interesting things was because it was a 5-bladed propeller. One of the interesting things was the Griffin engine at the time. The propeller rotated the opposite direction of the Merlin. So I remember hearing about this. So one thing you had to do is when you first were training people or you first transitioned to it, normally what happens is in a single engine propeller plane, when you're on takeoff, particularly these tail draggers, because of the torque, there's a tendency that most aircraft it wants to veer to the left on takeoff. Okay. So what you tend to have to do is you have to apply a little bit of right rudder as you're taking off. Okay, pilots will understand what I'm talking about here. Problem was the Griffins went the other way. So if you forgot, and just as you lifted off, if you applied right rudder, you'd basically put the wing into the ground.
Oh.
Yeah, basically, because it was already going in that direction. You had to kick in left rudder. But I do remember that. The other thing that was neat about these things was sometimes when they came up against the buzz bombs, if they ran like the V1s, if they ran out of ammo, it would catch up to it. It actually use its wingtip and it would flip the thing over, the buzz bomb, and then because again that would be enough to disrupt its primitive autopilot, and it would
Yep.
plow into the ground because these things were headed for London. So they wanted to get them
Yes.
before they got in
Yeah.
the country. And yeah, there's actually several cases where that's what they did. They actually brought the
That's
wingtip in.
incredible.
Oh
I've never
yeah,
heard that tale
yep,
before.
yep.
That's really
No,
neat.
pretty cool stuff. I actually years ago I had the pleasure and the privilege of talking to a pilot who actually did that. I was an air show in England, and yeah,
Oh, very
yeah.
cool.
He says, you see the odd film of it looks easy, but he says it was bloody difficult. Of course, you have to do it enough to tip it over, but not enough to damage your own thing, so your craft wouldn't fly, right? So yeah,
Wow.
interesting story there. Okay,
Very cool story. Yeah.
yeah, I've really digressed. So that's what's hot at ScaleMates. Okay, so briefly, let's talk a bit about Goodman Models. The
Yeah.
website's getting there.
It is. I've done a little bit more work on it. Slow but steady, let's say.
There is
But
some
I've been
product.
trying to crank out some orders. I've had a bunch of orders and trying to get some stock. But there is stock available for
Yeah.
anyone interested, and you can order a set on the Facebook page still. And yeah, if you want that controlled precision over your sanding, they're the best tool in town.
Well, exactly. And I believe you can also order direct from the website now. There's some products in.
Yep. The website is active, but I haven't gone off and promoted it too heavily yet, just because I'm
Yeah.
still working on tweaking it with your help, of
Yep,
course.
and you're still trying to get some stock in. So
Yeah, just trying to right now, just building up some stock, and but it is they are available at culttvman.com
awesome.
in his shop, and they're
Mhm.
available at FlexiFile where they have the singles as well as the sets, and
Right.
also for singles and sets they're available at Wheels and Wings in Toronto.
Okay, and I believe Sunward Hobbies as well. We were talking about them.
Yep, they're gonna be carrying the singles,
Right.
and I need to send that guy some photos.
There you go.
So
You
it's
have to do
also on
that.
my list of homework to do.
Perfect. Okay, so Anthony's got a lot of homework, kids.
There's
Okay.
always homework.
All right. So let's move on to with our topic. So we did a pre-recorded interview. This is an interview with Kim Taylor. So Kim is a London-based award-winning model maker, figure painter, author, and blogger. She's actually has articles in Fine Scale Modeler, Michigan Toys, and Michigan Toy Soldier Company. She does custom figure painting through her Facebook page, KT Minis, and creates World War II era scale camouflage nets and ropes with vehicles with her partner Scott at Thatchweed Products. And the neat thing about it is Kim is actually local to London. So she's been involved with AMPS London and IPMS London and all that. So you reached out to her and we had a really awesome interview. So we're going to play that for you right now.
Yeah.
Welcome to our interview segment of the Scale Model Podcast. Anthony is going to do an intro of our guest tonight. Anthony, over to you, sir.
Hey, hello. Tonight we have with us Kim Taylor, who is an awesome modeler from the London area. She is really into doing minis and science fiction. She also works on thatch weave, which we're going to talk all about, which is cool. I don't know how to describe it. Sort of sewn. Are they sewn accessories for World War II models? She's also a accomplished blogger and article writer. And how are you doing tonight, Kim?
Excellent. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're very excited. Yeah, so you're into a lot of different stuff, and I'm trying to keep up with what you're doing, and we've always had some interesting chats. So it's really exciting to have you on here, and let's dive into some of your upcoming projects. I know that you're working on a very cool article for Fine Scale Modeler.
I am. So this is my second article that I'm doing for them.
Very
and
cool.
I've gone to a lot of the IPMS conventions, the national conventions, and met some of the crew that come out from Fine Scale Modeler, which are super, super nice people. And they, at those big shows, they will put little cards by your model if they want to photograph them for they do kind of like the great scale modeling issues from the big shows.
Yeah, I've had that too.
Yeah, so it's really exciting when they drop a card off, like you're like, wow, they want to take a picture of my model.
Nice.
So I've been in quite a number of those over the years and gotten to know the people and have talked to them about sort of modeling and actually related to, I think, something we're going to talk about later, sort of the future of modeling. So we were saying, like, what would be a way to get younger people interested in modeling? And, I had been starting to bring out more sort of gaming figures to shows, which they have photographed. And they were having their own discussions internally about the idea of a new series that's a bi-monthly series in the magazine that's called Paint and Play.
Cool.
So it's really about getting gaming miniatures as sort of a segment of the modeling community, more awareness into modeling, modelers as a whole, because
they've always been there, just sort of almost in a separate stream. So they're kind of coming together.
Yeah. So I'm kind of one of those, I would say, maybe just because I haven't met a lot of other people who would say they're like me, who's a bit of a crossover person. So I've done very, standard scale modeling things in armor and aircraft and figures and sci-fi, those real, I've tried a lot of different things, but I've also done the gaming things, and there aren't too many people who seem to do both. They're very siloed. And I always thought that was really a shame, because the techniques and the learning that we do when we're, say, going to like a model club meeting or in the model shop where, you're shooting the breeze over the modeling table and talking tips and things with people who just happen to drop in, the same people aren't at both those places.
Yes.
So, the conversations I have with the guys at the Games Workshop store and the people I meet there are a completely different crowd than the people I would meet in like a hobby store where I would buy, the armor kits and their paints, and they have different paint lines and different brushes. So there's a lot of reinventing the wheel, I think, in the two different genres.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I think, the reality is, if they want younger modelers, like when I go out and see who's painting, in that kind of gaming minis and sort of that genre, they're young people, and they're amazing people. There's amazing, talented modelers out there, and they don't go to the IPMS shows. Like, they're not bringing their models out because I don't even think they know those shows exist.
There's definitely a disconnect.
At the same, they have their own kind of conventions,
their
and they
clubs.
have their own painting contest type shows that are completely separate and apart. And honestly, like, the IPMS is, they're open to all of these sorts of things. They'll fit in. And they are trying to open up categories. I've seen over the recent years.
I've noticed that as well, that now they're starting to have like a category for Warhammer or the sort of gaming finishers, which is the right way to kind of approach things, right? To be inclusive.
It was kind of awkward in the past sometimes, where the category would be fantasy or fantasy and science fiction, and it's like, well, is this Warhammer guy science fiction? Is it fantasy?
Exactly.
And then the scales are different.
And how do you judge too? It's so difficult to judge.
How do you judge? Because they have their own kind of style of painting and things that are very much, taught from person to person within that community. So essentially the first one I took it's a single figure, and it's very similar to what I'm going to be doing now. And it's a walkthrough, so it's definitely step-by-step with different products and tips and, paint suggestions to give you ideas of, what colors and things to do, just very much like you would do for a plain article or whatever. But
I know you told me the subject of your how-to article is the Ishiran Soul Render. That's correct?
Yes,
the one?
It is. So he is. So in the Warhammer world, for people who are not familiar, there are different sorts of games that people play that have different groups of factions, let's just say. And so one of the big groups is called the Age of Sigmar. And so within the Age of Sigmar, one of their groups that has been a fairly recent release, I think I would say within the last 2 years, was the Adonith Deepkin. So these are like undersea guys.
Yep.
Okay.
And so they have some really neat things. I have several other models that I've got that I haven't started yet, so that would be on my workbench to come.
Very cool.
I just find, like, my personal background is in science, so something I really enjoy bringing into these and these ones I've been painting lately have more nature kind of connections. So the Adonith guys have cool fish and turtles and sharks, and they're kind of channeling deep sea stuff, which I think is
cool.
really cool. The thing that I did before was like a mushroom kind of a guy. So also on my paint bench is a very fun kind of whimsical group called Gaba Palooza, and they are part of a different group called the Gloom Spite Gits, which they have a lot of mushrooms and this sort of, I don't, it's kind of hard to describe them sometimes, but
Yeah, they're very like it's very creative world, like all the
very
gaming.
creative. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably what ended up sucking me more into this world, to be honest, was the originality and the ways you can be creative. You know, like I feel like I would go to shows sometimes and I would see, tanks, say, and
Yeah.
a whole table full of Shermans that
Yeah.
are all really quite similar, and
Yeah.
and
It's hard to
It is.
yeah, it's hard
yeah,
It
to
is.
it seems like the point is really just to how accurate can you get compared to the next one, right?
Right.
And it's all in very small increments of difference.
yes. And like once upon a time, I would say even when I sort of first started doing modeling, and before these super mega kits came along and all these, the pre MIG Jimenez styles and things, there
Yeah.
was a lot of like you had an average plastic kit. It might be somewhat accurate, it might not. So you might have to finagle some parts or build things or whatever to kind of make it good, right? And then
Yeah.
when that model sat on the table after done all this stuff to it or added some really interesting technique you cooked up yourself, people would go, wow, like, how did you do that? And
Yeah.
now everybody has access to these super amazingly, if you have the money, granted,
Yeah.
amazing kits, amazing paints, weathering up the wazoo
Yep.
of all
Yeah.
varieties,
It's
and
an
instruction books and manuals and blogs that tell you point by point exactly how to do that. So it just feels like it's become very, in some of those genres anyways for me, very recipe driven. Like if you follow these steps correctly, you will
yeah.
come out with a beautiful model that
Right.
looks like this.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Where,
all there. It really is. There's been an
yeah,
explosion in that aftermarket sets though that are I know exactly what you're saying that are there
yeah.
for you and you just have to sort of pick it up.
And
You know,
that's the thing. And if you do and you can and you've got the, you work at it and you can get through the skills you need to do it, you too can have a beautiful model. But then when you see a table full of beautiful models that are like the same kit, the same kind of basic styles,
Same
it's
subject.
like it's sort of like a bit of a blur to me. It's
yes.
hard. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I was that person who would go to a show, and I mean, you both have seen some of my work over
Yep.
time.
Yep.
I wanted to be the model that stood out from the table.
Right.
So,
Right.
like I'm the one who does like the Renault R35 in pink and green because that's the way I saw it, and took a Heller
Yeah.
kit and basically scratch built the whole exterior because there was nothing worthwhile about it,
Yep.
and painted it as I saw it in a parking lot. And it was, nothing on the table looked like mine
No.
or like
Very
my,
cool.
And
And
that's
that's
um,
what.
hard to do. It's hard to stand out when you get,
well, and that was my thing. Like
a
I
very
didn't
similar.
want to blend in.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think, yeah, and I think it's a perfect example, and this is what we see with the miniature world, because I've painted my share of minis too, not to the extent or quality that you do, obviously, but it's nice to be able to, and I've taken this in my modeling as well. It's my build. I will do it the way I want, and it's nice to
Exactly.
have something unique, and it is like
Yeah.
Games Workshop does some absolutely amazing stuff. I'm looking at one of the soul renders on their site now. That's quite neat.
Yeah.
I'd never known what this was until I looked it up, and yeah, it's pretty impressive. I love the little fish.
Oh, that's what I mean. And I'm still, so this is my next one. I do have a deadline coming up very soon and it is in progress, but the little fish is stumping me because I'm thinking, I have so many ideas of what it could be. Could it look more like a real fish? Could it look more like a metallic, like steampunk fish? Like,
Right.
is it a robot? Is it a
Yeah.
real fish? Like,
Exactly.
I haven't decided yet, and I have such interesting, paints and things that I've got recently. Like, sky's the limit, right? So it's almost like
Mhm.
too many ideas.
Right.
And then, what do you do?
Well, you have
But I
to
mean,
buy another miniature, obviously. You have to
buy
buy
another
two of
one
them.
to do it
Right,
again.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think what was one of the things that tickled me most after this article came out, which of course, as an author and first timer, I'm thinking all the things is like, oh dang, I should have done that differently or whatever.
Yeah.
There was a letter to the editor about some guy, and I think it was, son, grandson, or something had seen this article, and they made a connection as like, wow, you do modeling too, right? Like, what kind of stuff? So it had
Awesome.
like opened
Yeah,
up a
very cool.
dialogue between a kid and like an older person
Yeah.
who
Yeah,
had been
that's
reading
awesome.
Hawkeye. And I thought, yeah, you know what? That was exactly the kind of thing that we were hoping this series would do.
Yeah,
So they're
that's
going to do all
excellent.
different kinds of things that you would actually use. And I think that's one of the other things about the whole like gaming figures is you're going to use them. I love that, right? So
Hmm.
the other
Yes,
models we
yeah.
have are beautiful and they're art. Like to me, models are art, right? They're not
Yeah,
functional.
absolutely.
Those things that you spend all that time making amazing dioramas and then they sit on a shelf. Like
Yep.
it's an art piece and it's got amazing memories for you and in the whole process of creating it, but it sits there, right? So,
Hmm.
what I love about things like this, or you would see on my Facebook page, I've done like Dungeons and Dragons figures for that. Is people use them, they play with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's neat
So
that they have an extra life beyond kind of just the building project, right?
exactly, that's
Yeah.
it exactly.
Now
So
we should clarify for our listeners, has that article already been published or is it forthcoming?
forthcoming. So
Okay.
the first one I did, if anybody has older versions of Fine Scale, was September 2018.
Hmm.
Oh, cool.
This one I think is November will be the release of this one.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Very
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
That'll be awesome. Okay, we'll move on to a few other things. Now you're also involved with your partner in crime,
hmm
Thatch Weave. Let's just briefly talk about that just for a few minutes. How did it
Sure.
come up? How did it come about? I know it's been around for it.
Sorry guys, I'm having visitors here.
Okay.
Guys, I'm recording a podcast right now.
Why are you talking into the thing?
Products is a kind of a funny crossover small business, and it really had come about because there had been a model that my husband was working on, and he had shown me these pieces that came in the kit, and they were it was an amphibious vehicle. So this particular sort of a truck drives into the water, and it had these fenders or bumpers, they would call them, that in modern days it would be made out of styrofoam to keep your boat from like bashing against the dock, but
Right.
in those days they were made out of rope in real life. But these little pieces that came in the kit looked like sausages. They were absolutely atrocious. And, I have done many, many other crafty kinds of hobbies over the years. And so he's like, could you come up with something that looks like this, using string? And essentially I did. And, the feeling was, well, this is a popular enough subject. We wondered if other people might be interested in actually purchasing such things.
Right.
So we made sets and we went to an AMPS, the Armor Modeling Preservation Society convention, and, brought a handful of these things. And the first night we were there, maybe an hour, and everything I brought was gone. It was sold.
Excellent.
Yeah. And so I spent the rest of the next 2 days weaving, and
Oh,
like
dear.
what it is there, these particular things we're talking about are woven. So weaving these little things and bagging them up and taking orders. And so every year we've added on other things that are essentially in this ilk. So
Yeah.
in real life, these things would have been made out of rope or
Hmm.
camouflage net. So organic materials, which are just really hard to replicate in plastic or resin.
Yeah.
And so I make little itty bitty versions of things that look pretty close to the real thing, and
They
in
do.
different scales. So I've done right down to 72nd scale, little itty bitty things that might hang off a landing craft, and they're made with sewing thread. So people always ask me if I'm like going blind, right? This is
Yep.
just so small. And I've done right up to like 16th scale things for people who are running RC tanks and they
Right.
want to have something a little more realistic, for their tanks. So it's really been an interesting process over the years, and have met lots of people that way. And yeah, so if
Yeah, and
anyone's
they're really awesome.
They
I know
are.
I've often ogled them, but I don't have any like I don't have any of the kits
yeah,
in that they kind of go with, right? But I've thought, oh, this would be awesome. They are really fantastic.
it's a
So
very nichey thing.
yeah. Now I was gonna ask, is it basically all World War II era, or is there a kind of mixture of subject eras?
Yeah, I would say it's mostly World War II era, and it's mostly almost completely Allied stuff. So,
Yep.
I mean, a few exceptions are the German Landwasserschlepper, which was a German amphibious vehicle, and it had this woven rope fender thing that went around the whole circumference of the vehicle.
Hmm.
So it was like a really impressive thing. And we actually had been in contact when the first kit came out, and they were trying to figure out what to do about that part, and they knew we were doing similar products, so they decided not to put in a plastic part.
Oh, that's good.
And yeah, so that it would encourage people to get our products instead. So when some of those kits were first released, yeah, we there were many of them out in the world there. So actually, if people are interested in seeing what any of this stuff looks like in the flesh, if they go to thatchweave.tripod.com, we do have a gallery.
Yep.
And you can see people's completed models and see what we're
Awesome.
talking about.
Yeah, and we're gonna include these links in the show notes, so people will be able to access them there as well as your Facebook page at KT Minis. So very
Perfect.
cool. Okay, so what else have you seen? What are your observations, basically? Because again, we all know that when it comes down between the ratio of men and women in the modeling community, it's very heavily skewed. One way in particular. So what have you
Yeah.
encountered notes about being a woman in this? I hate to use the word male dominated, but we definitely have a higher percentage of men than women in the hobby.
Well, and I think what we have to do somewhat is when we're talking about the hobby, it is still somewhat genre based.
Mhm.
So what I have encountered is there are many female figure painters, and there are many female gaming figure painters. What there are
Hmm.
not a lot of female is aircraft, armor,
Yes,
ships,
yes, I've
figure
noticed that.
painters. So, when I tend to go to places, in around, I mean, even in the United States, if it's sort of like an IPMS show or event, is 97% male.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because what goes out on the table is mostly those subjects. And so you don't tend to see huge numbers of, like, say, gaming figures or some of the other types of figures. So, yeah, I mean, to begin with, I definitely felt like a little bit of an odd man out. But honestly, once people see that, you seem to know what you're talking about and know what you're doing,
Hmm.
and it was just one of the crowd. But I did personally feel like I had something to prove at the beginning, for sure,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
a woman could do it, could
Hmm.
build a tank just as well as a man. So I had set myself some goals. When I started building tanks, for example, and was a member of AMPS, was one of the founding members of our chapter here in London,
Hmm.
I had set myself a goal to win a gold medal in advanced at the AMPS National Convention.
Right.
And I did.
Wow.
Good for you.
Nice.
I have several now,
Oh,
but it's sort of
congrats.
like,
Excellent.
but nobody cared but me. Do you know what I mean? It
Yep,
wasn't
I
like
understand. Yep.
oh my gosh, a woman got a gold, because by that point everybody knew who I was. I was
Yeah.
just a member of the club, you know what I mean? And it's it's a pretty niche club.
Yep.
So I think,
Yeah.
there are I think some subgenres that have their niche, cliquey kind of stuff going on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, one of what I find is one of the biggest downsides of modeling
Right.
is the cliques.
Yeah.
And a bit of
Yeah.
the, who wants to do this with who, and who thinks this about who, and who should win. And, that is the stuff that's a real downer. So,
Absolutely.
I don't enjoy that stuff at all. But I think the sharing, the learning, and I would personally love to see model shows that were not competitive,
I
that
agree.
were display-based shows,
Like a
that
showcase
were
kind of thing.
like a
Yep.
showcase, that had
Yeah.
more seminars, like to come and
Yeah.
share, learn from each other. I would think would be so much more valuable to me personally than
Yeah.
this, competition
Yep.
where, it all depends on who's judging and the weather and who's friends
Yeah.
with who. And
Sometimes
Exactly.
the competitions never stop, right?
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
unfortunate. Like it's really unfortunate. And I think, for a while, things like winning awards were, a way to sort of say to yourself, yeah, look at that. I'm getting better or I'm good relative to other people. But after you've got a drawer full of the things, then what? Like,
Yep.
if you're just doing it for that, it's probably really not the right reason. And it can be super stressful,
Yep.
trying to compete
Yeah.
all the time. And so I'm really not. I'm kind of trying to shy away from it now. Like, and I've heard other people get to that same point, that they just don't want to bring stuff out to shows, and I'm kind of getting it. Like,
Yeah.
it's the politics and stuff I don't think are that fun.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, I do think the style of judging that the AMPS people have adopted, which is quite intensive, is much more based on criteria and really trying to like pick down the various types of things of your model to make you a better modeler. So
Yes.
there are groups who judge and they look at every single model, so it's not like whose model gets ignored, or who stands out. Everyone's model gets looked at, everybody gives it a score and it's averaged. You must give constructive comments. Like that to me, I think is a system designed to help people become better modelers if that's what they wish to do.
Yeah,
But
that's I agree. I'm really
yeah,
attracted to that system, and I kind of want to be more part of that as well.
mhm.
So
It's a super intensive system though, like
yeah.
compared to the way you do a one-day show,
Yeah.
where you bring the models in, in the morning, you rope it off, you have people wander around and, and decide who wins. That's quick. But the other way where you have to look at every single model, imagine what happens when you have to have 4 judges per group and there's 700 models who show up.
It makes
Like
a
it's
challenge.
a logistical challenge.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
for
But I think
sure.
it's something, that for the future, particularly IPMS and that, they have to, and I've said this before on the show many times, they do have to move with the times. And if they're going to attract, the younger modelers, the new people, we talk about here how big Gundam and stuff from Japan is in terms of
Yeah.
sales. They just, they just outweigh, traditional model kits by 10 or 100 to 1. And people just don't realize. So it's something I think they're going to have to move with. As you say, it's got a lot of logistical challenges.
Yep.
But I like the idea of that. I was thinking back. I mentioned on the last show that at the Heritage Con convention in Hamilton a couple of months ago, on the juniors table there was this wonderful little Toon Sherman tank painted
Oh,
in
yes.
purple and pink by a 5-year-old. Well, I met her father at the Torcan show on several weekends ago, and
Yep.
her name is Olivia, and she's 5 years old, and she had an absolute ball, and her father could not be more proud. And that's the
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
She picked the color. Her dad helped her mix the paint, but she airbrushed it. But that's, in the end, that's what it's all about. She thought it was a cool color. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, she did a great job.
Yep, I couldn't believe she was 5, and that's exactly the kind of encouragement we want. There's a place. I often say there's a place in a hobby for everyone. If you want to be a rivet counter and make sure your Panther tank has exactly the right amount of rivets and stuff like that, if that's what makes you enjoy yourself, then go to it. But at the same time, yep, yeah, at the same time, there's other people, and this is what I love about some of the Warhammer and fantasy thing. It's how you choose to do it, and there's some absolutely amazing stuff. And I think organizations like IPMS and stuff like that, we have to move with the times. I've heard for the last 30 years the hobby's dying. It's not dying; it's evolving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, I would completely agree with you. And, I think the way history and who's learned from who, when I hear people who are, a little older than myself, let's just say, where they got inspired was because their fathers were building models.
Right.
And the kids
Yeah.
their age, when they were, in their tweens and things, it was the cool thing to do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You go to the Woolworths on a Saturday and you'd pick up a little tiny kit, right? And that was exciting, and you went home and built it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so how do you get these kids, right? So either you're going to have a parent who's a modeler now try to instill the love in their children, which, that's kind of a hit and miss deal, right? Like, it's worth a
Yeah.
try.
Yep.
But, things like bringing out those tune tanks, I
Right.
thought was brilliant,
It is.
because it reached a whole bunch of different people. And, some of the fun things people have been doing with them, and like,
Yeah.
it was like, throw the rules out the window, build
Exactly.
this thing
Absolutely.
and have some fun with it. And I thought,
Yeah.
what a breath of fresh air,
Yeah.
and I hope to see more, but it's the people who still like it the way it is, dagnammit, and want to keep on keeping on. That part of the hobby, I think, is going to be extinguished at
It
some
certainly
point
is
in the not too
dwindling.
distant future.
Yeah, it's dwindling. No matter how much fussing and huffing goes on, right? It's just
Yeah.
there's a huge world of stuff out there, and so everybody can find their niche of interest for sure.
Definitely.
Exactly.
Definitely. And I think definitely, like, you see the tune tanks, you see other tie-ins with video game tie-ins, and that they're bringing people in from other areas, and that's that is
Exactly.
where the future of the hobby is. You're still going to have people just like now. You still have people that build stuff from the Civil War or build stuff from World War One. We've seen a huge resurgence in World War One stuff because of the anniversary, the 100th anniversary. So you're still going to see that, but yeah, it is definitely going to change, and we are big advocates about that. We support the hobby no matter what it is. So, all right. What else? And again, we've already covered a little bit of this, but how else have you seen the modeling world change in your experience?
I think products have changed a lot, and that's one of the things that I guess I haven't talked about is I've been doing some new product reviews for Michigan Toy Soldier.
Right.
So great store, online store, and they have a blog, and they have lots of different modelers out there who are doing different kind of blogs. There's blogs like myself. There are people doing build articles. There's historical stuff. Like, it's quite a deep collection of things. But it was a neat opportunity, and they actually were soliciting writers at the IPMS Nationals last year, and it was like,
Awesome.
if you will do new product reviews, you can have the product. So it's like,
Right.
all right, sign me up. What can I
Nice.
try? So there was definitely paints that I was interested in doing. So I've tried a new brand of paints called Scale 75, which is really big in the figure painting world,
Okay.
but was not used at all, I don't think, in the the scale model
I
kind of
have to admit,
historical
I hadn't even
world.
heard of that
it.
one.
Never
Yeah.
even heard
Yeah,
about
so
it.
it's really different, and I've started to see more people carry it. But it's like it was new, and I'd heard about it, so it was a good chance to be like, okay, let me see what this is like.
Nice.
And some interesting like technique books, because I was interested in steampunk stuff. So they had a steampunk paintings, how to book. What I'm working on right now, which would be on my bench and is my next blog. I said to them, like, I've always wanted to do a side-by-side comparison of flesh paint sets. So lots of different
Right.
companies, the Andreas and the MIGs and the you name it, all have like one of those sets of, here are 5 paints, and if you use them as we tell you, you'll get a good looking face.
Right.
So I wanted to try some different, to see what the brands were like what was the paint quality like, what were the colors like, and if I had to pick one, like, what would I recommend? Because I'd once upon a time said that exact same question as somebody else who was
Cool.
selling paints. It's like, if you were to buy a set, which would you buy and why?
That's what
So
I need. That's what I need. Because it's one area of my, I'm getting into some 35th armor. That's one area I haven't done is figures yet, and being able to do that, it's something I want to do. So yeah, I'll look forward to hearing about that.
That's
so after
awesome.
this article, it is definitely my next thing. It's already in progress, but it's
right.
just kept getting bumped.
Yeah.
So
no,
I feel
understand.
bad, but it's one of those.
And Michigan
one of
Toy
those
Soldier, they're an absolutely awesome site. I'm very familiar with them. They do some
Yep.
very cool things on their site.
Really
It's,
great people too. Like
yeah, they
the
are.
staff are really, really
I've
nice.
heard that as well
Awesome.
in
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the figure community. All right, Anthony,
Very much so.
you go with the next question, my friend.
Yeah. So that sounds really interesting. I'm also we were chatting about that, and I'm very excited to kind of see how your reviews pan out there with the figure painting sets. So what do you think about how things are progressing, sort of in the modern world in general, and where do you see the hobby in 5 to 10 years?
Oh my goodness, that's a good question.
It's one we ask everyone.
I know you asked
It's one of our favorite questions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are sort of some sad things. Like I was looking at people's shirts this past weekend at Torcan and seeing the like commemorative shirts for some of our, fellow modelers in
Yeah.
Quebec. And, they'd mentioned that 3 of their club members had died in the past year.
Oh, wow.
So, our club membership is, I think in North America, and I'm putting a caveat on that,
Mm-hmm.
in North America, is getting older.
Yes.
And, I think that is something we're really going to see is a lot more of who's not there, right, at some of these things.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing I think I'd say is even more of our favorite brick and mortar stores are closing.
Mm-hmm.
So, things like Hornet Hobbies in Toronto, right, had been there in a big part of my memory of the hobby, and
Yes.
now they're shuttered up too. So online stores are, I think, where people will buy a lot of their stuff. So the whole camaraderie you get from dropping into your local hobby store and shooting the breeze about kits or paints or whatever, if the people can't afford to keep their brick and mortars open, we're going to lose that side of thing, that kind of part of the community as well. But I think on the hopeful side, some of the cross branding things like the Games Workshops, like the Toon Tanks, like War of Tanks. What am I trying to say?
Sigmar.
Like the sort of online forums where people
The
meet up
online
now.
games, like
Yeah.
World of Tanks.
World of Tanks,
So,
yeah.
World of Tanks has brought out kits of the tanks in their games.
Yes.
And they've also sponsored like events with real tanks. And so that's again across trying to bring different demographics in. And I think there are some people who are actually trying that. So I'm hopeful that a younger generation in this country will start to find some interest, but we've got to make those guys welcome, like younger people welcome into our modeling communities.
Yeah.
But, where I'm finding the inspiration for myself a lot is in Europe.
Right.
There are
Definitely.
amazing, model painters there, and the communities seem very much alive. And you kind of think, how are they doing it?
Yeah.
And is there anything that we can learn to, keep it alive and growing here in North America?
And that's one of the things I've constantly, people hear me harp on about it a lot. There's a lot of things where the IPMS and other organizations can do, to welcome, when I say welcome, whether it's the Gundams, the figure painters, because there's a lot of techniques that both sides, and you mentioned it too, it's heavily saddled, can learn from each other. I've gotten so many amazing techniques on dry brushing and weathering, and I first learned that based on painting figures. It wasn't, and vice versa. Now, our local IPMS chapter here in London, we've got some new members, and they're building a little bit more sci-fi stuff and some Gundams. But it's good to see some of the older hands, shall we say? They're actually, they're interested. They're quite impressed. We've got a good relationship, but it doesn't happen everywhere, as you say. We have places where the gaming stores have a good clientele of people who both paint and play, but they've never even heard of IPMS. And I think there's a lot the two silos, shall we say, can do. And I think that's where the future lies. We need to get both groups talking because it's a lot of similar things. In the end, it is modeling and detailing something in miniature, whether it's real or fantasy, and doing it in the way that you want to.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that would certainly be something worth a try.
Yep. So it's hopefully some people, the powers that be, are listening to this, and I know there's some people, that talk about that, and again, the cross-platform stuff, we've mentioned that as well, and we really support it. Okay, we're going to finish up with our traditional last question, Kim, and that is, of course, what's on your bench?
Oh, what's on my bench? I have to say it has to be my Isharan guy. He is actively, the paint is on the brushes and on the thing as we speak. The Goobapaloozas, I was at a D&D game last night, and while I was listening and playing, I was cutting out all the pieces apart
Awesome.
and gluing them together. So those guys look like they're just going to be a blast. So
Yeah.
when I need something kind of just fun and low key, they'll be next. And I cannot forget about doing those faces because we all want to know what the answer is to which of these should we buy.
Yeah, right on.
That's great. So yeah, we
Yeah.
really appreciate you, joining us here. We'd love to have you back. You definitely bring
Yeah.
a wonderful perspective, which is always good. There's many perspectives in this hobby. You've got some amazing work, and again, we're going to put up the link to your Facebook page and some of the other ones there. I love some of your mushroom guys from the Nationals. I remember seeing those earlier on, but it's nice to see them again. So yeah, overall, so any last parting shots, parting words?
Well, I would say if you are a modeler and you've never been to the Games Workshop store here in London,
Oh yeah,
it's at White Oaks Mall.
yep.
Go over there and check it out.
It's a
It's got
dangerous
some really fun
place.
stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Cool.
No, and that's funny. Games Workshop as a company, they have the technique down right. They really know how to get people into the hobby.
And here's a fun fact for you.
Mhm.
They are the first Games Workshop store in North America.
Yes,
Really?
Yes,
They were
Wow.
like a test market.
I knew
Like,
that.
as you know, London is a big test market
Yep.
city,
Yep.
and we were the test market for Games Workshop.
Yep, I
Oh,
remember
that's
that.
interesting.
I also remember going to Games Workshop like 30 years ago in London, England, when they were
Wow.
very small, very different, more just the standard Warhammer stuff. That's where
Yep.
I picked up some stuff, and yeah, they've just, for them, it's a license to print money. Beautiful
yes.
castings, beautiful moldings. As anyone who's a parent whose kids get involved in Warhammer
right.
40K and that, it adds up. But again, beautiful stuff. Okay, so thank you again, and we really appreciate that. And
Yeah,
we'll hope
thanks
to,
so much, Kim.
and we'll hope to
Yeah,
have
no
you on
worries. It was fun.
on again soon. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So as you can see, really amazing stuff. We do have some links to Kim's work on the Facebook page, so make sure you check it out. We were really impressed with what she does.
Yeah, her stuff is very cool, and like that, the Fat Tree products are super neat.
Yep.
I know they do all like the netting for like the duck.
Mhm.
Is it the Duck W?
Yep.
You know, that famous kind of like amphibious craft from World War II.
Amphibious
They do a whole
vehicle, yep.
series for that of the different accessories.
Exactly. So yeah. So no, all in all, and we're gonna try and convince Scott, get him on too, because he's a pretty awesome armor modeler, and he's also involved with some publishing, isn't he?
Yes, and we did talk about one of the books. He's a representative for David Doyle, who
Right.
publishes all kinds of really great reference books on. I think it's definitely a lot of armor.
Mhm.
But also, if I had noticed, there's a couple books or a couple series about airplanes as well, and they're just beautiful. So the one I picked up was the M2 M3 Bradley book, and
That's
it's
right.
just fantastic.
So you're enjoying that?
Yeah, I read it cover to cover, and can't wait to get into that project. But I got a few other projects to get through first.
Oh, isn't it always the way, right?
Yeah, but it'd be great to talk to him. So he'll be upcoming as well, and we can talk about his work with David Doyle and all the other interesting things he's getting up to.
Right. Okay, moving on to our talking tools segment. My turn this time. This is one I use all the time, and it's one.
Me too.
If you use Mr. Hobby paints, Gunzi, Tamiya, whatever, this is a must. This is the Mr. Hobby paint cap opener.
I love this thing.
Yeah, it looks like a plastic little wrench with two sets of circles and some grooves in it, and also a groove in the very middle, plus a rubber, basically a rubber little thing that you hold. You put the bottle in. So you know what it's like when you get your Tamiya or Mr. Color paint and you've forgotten to clean out the edge, which we all do.
Even if you clean it out, sometimes
It
they still
sticks.
just seize
Yeah,
up, right?
it seizes up and you can't get it. Well, this thing here, you basically put the bottle in this like silicone thing that fits the bottle perfectly. So you have a good grip, and then you use the wrench. And again, there's one side for the Tamiya, one side for the Mr. Color, and there's also in the middle, there's a little slot for some of the other traditional Mr. Colors that had some of the, they had the little slot
the old Mr. Colors had that top right where it had like a slot.
Yeah, exactly. So you use this thing, and this just breaks it open far safer. You don't have to worry about you trying a wrench and breaking the bottle and dumping it on the floor and all that.
Gives you leverage, so it's just not so hard on your wrists.
Exactly.
That's what I like about it.
It's just it's an absolute must. It's not that much. You can get it all over the place. A lot of stores carry it.
I'm just looking here. HobbyLink Japan has it for $6.15 Canadian, but I know I've seen it in all kinds of store shelves.
Yeah, exactly. I know a lot of places that will carry some of their other stuff will have this. A lot of the Gundam stores.
If you want to know something interesting about that, so the two holes, right? They're numbered 1 and 2.
Okay.
And this is put out by GSI Krios, who makes like Mr. Hobby and Mr. Color.
Right.
One was for Mr. Or the Aqueous Hobby bottles, which were slightly different, and the other side is for the Mr. Color. But the number 1 slot, and as you know and you've mentioned, works really well with the Tamiya bottles.
Yep, exactly. That worked perfectly. So, yeah, this is one of those ones. Again, look up some of the videos online. It's one of those things. Once you get it, you wonder why you waited so long.
Oh yeah, just save your wrists, right?
More importantly, you're not going to break a glass bottle or by trying to use a set of wrenches or banging it or all that crap, right?
Yeah. Now I've never actually broken a bottle, but I could see how that happens. But before I discovered this, and you had like an old bottle, it was all sealed up, I would take pliers to it, and then you'd ruin the cap.
Ruin the cap, and
that kind of bugged me. I don't know why. It was not important, but still, you never have that issue again.
Exactly. It just works. I still remember years ago with those little tiny Tamiya Testors glass bottles. I used the wrench on that, and you just wreck the damn thing.
You just strip there's like a circle around it.
It was just bad. So definitely.
Did you ever break a bottle?
I never broke a bottle. I came close. I pretty well killed a top lid a couple of times.
Yeah,
again, this is back when I was a kid.
Out a lid too.
No, I've always been good since then. But it's one of those ones. There might be other things you can do, but the thing that's nice about this is you've got the little silicone container you put the bottle in,
gripper,
and the gripper, and that just keeps it so safe. So, well recommended.
Another awesome tool.
Okay, what's on the bench? So my Pegasus is just about done. Decals on, some final weathering to go. I've actually released a video for our Patreon supporters. Thank you again, where I go into a little bit what sort of things I use for washes and stuff like that. Just a very brief summary. So that's available right now to our Patreon subscribers.
And we have a new subscriber, don't we?
We do, and I cannot believe I am very bad because I didn't say that right at the beginning. So I want to say...
We'll give him due credit right now.
Yeah, Robert German. I hope I'm German.
Robert German?
German. I hope I'm saying that right. 2 N's at the end. Thank you again. We really appreciate the support for that. So Robert and others will be able to enjoy that video I released yesterday for a couple of weeks before the rest of the world sees it. So definitely, if you're interested, again, patreon.com, Scale Model Podcast. So what I want to do now is, I'm trying to decide what to build next. So I did do a post on our Facebook group, and I had it, there's just so many different ones, right? Between buying some new stuff and, you kind of feel, what do you want? So I want something kind of a little bit of a quick build. So I got it narrowed down between an MPC Hawk from Space 1999, a very nice gun, or not a Gundam, a Valkyrie from Bandai, and a very nice Eduard Pro.
Oh, it's a Hasegawa.
Oh, sorry, the Hasegawa. My
right?
apologies. Yes, you're absolutely right. But again, very nice kit, still sealed, and a nice Spitfire Mark 9C. This is the 72nd scale from Eduard, the Profa pack. So everything you need. So
that's very cool.
Yeah, I threw it out there, and I'm, right now, of course, our wonderful audience are putting in. Right now, it seems to be, I think the Spitfire is ahead by 1, or the Spitfire and Hawk are in a dead heat.
You know what? I'm gonna throw my vote in then because I sort of I held back because we can
Yes.
let our listeners. I mean, I'm a little bit partial to the Valkyrie, my favorite
Yep.
bird of all time. But you know what? I think I'm gonna put my weight behind the Spitfire.
The Spitfire as well. So that's
Yep.
probably what it's going to be then. This is
We'll
a
see.
these are a nice little 70-second. Edouard makes some nice stuff. So yeah, I'm going to enjoy that. All right, I guess I'm building the Spitfire then.
Well, there you
So
go.
I will
Yeah.
do
Well, you
a
enjoy that,
I
Stuart.
will
We're
do
looking forward to seeing it.
I'll do an inbox video. I love 70-second. I'll do an inbox video. I want to try some different painting and weathering schemes. Our good friend of the show, John Bias, did a 48 scale. He's built like 80 Spitfires over the years. And one
Wow.
of the things I want to try is a bit more of the color modulation, where like in
Yep.
the middle the color is slightly lighter, stuff like that. So I'll have some fun with this. It's a short, small little kit, but it'll build up nicely and it'll go well with the other ones I have.
Wonderful.
Because
That's awesome.
you can never have too many Spitfires.
I gotta get one at some point.
Oh,
I
dude,
think
yeah.
there is definitely a hole on my shelf that
There is a
has
hole on your
Spitfire on
shelf
it.
that needs to be filled exactly.
Yep.
Okay, what about you, sir?
Oh, I've been sort of plugging away on the M577. I'm actually doing a bit of color modulation on the on
Mhm.
that car, on the armored car, and then I decided I had to kick the wheels out so they're turning.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So and it's so worth it. It looks so much more lively, and but of course I had to sort of modify it to work, like the axle, and so I've got that sort of together, and I sort of have to pre-paint some areas because it'll be hard to paint and weather them, after you install the wheels, for example, like into
Right.
the wheel wells and that kind of thing. So
Right.
that's why I sort of painted around it, but not the top. So
Okay.
I can finish it off later. But I did finish the driver compartment,
Mm-hmm.
and so there was sort of nothing there before. Oops. And I've got that ready to go. It kind of worked out pretty well. I'm quite happy with that. It's my first real figure attempt, half a figure,
Okay.
because you can't see it from the
No,
waist
but
down.
it
So
looks good. It looks good. When I was over there last time. It looked
yeah.
good. Yeah.
And I made a radio and some other like sort of bits and bobs to kind of make the sort
Right.
of driver compartment. And
Yep.
yeah, so now I'm just I'm doing a bit of color modulation like you're referring to on some of the panels.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna button it up
Mm-hmm.
and finish the painting, and then start some of the detail and overall painting. It's gonna be, it's coming together. A
Awesome.
base. And then after that, I got to get onto the Musaru Cup Challenge.
Yes, our good friends. So, for those who don't know, our good friends at On the Bench, the other amazing model podcast in Australia, who they normally release episodes off weeks from us. We basically started with, because there was a bit of mocking by one of them, was it Julian, I believe? Julian or Ian, one of the two, about Gundams.
Ian was
yeah.
sort of just saying how, oh look, there's a Gundam, sort of a generic science fiction.
Yeah, there was a little like a toy or something like
Yeah.
So we decided that honor had to be maintained, so we invited him to build one. Actually, I think it wasn't really an invite. We challenged him to build one. So he very good sport. He agreed, but then he threw us one back. He wanted a late 60s American muscle car. So Anthony managed to get one. We talked about it last week. So you've got some other announcements about that.
Yeah, so I haven't started. I mean, I think Ian's already mentioned. I did send Ian some reference material on what exactly that kit he picked out was.
You did.
And,
yeah, you mentioned that. Yep.
And I know he mentioned that he started cleaning up the pieces, so he's already on top. He's in the lead.
Attaboy.
And I haven't even. I read the instructions on my car because I haven't done a car in a good 30 years.
Yep.
And I did find a really fun detail that I'm going to add to the car.
Okay.
Because I'm a fun guy and I like fun stuff.
Are you going to tell us? It's going to be a
surprise? Secret. I'll reveal later.
Secret. Ooh, there we go.
Maybe on our Facebook page there'll be a nice prominent photo.
Excellent.
So
you'll
a little touch of fun.
A little touch of fun. And then I forgot about the 70-second scale. You got a club build.
Yeah, it's not an official club build.
No, but they just announced it.
It's a kit that I have in a little travel box, and I only build it when I'm at my the AMPS Southwest Ontario club meet.
Okay.
And it is a really terrible 1 to 72nd RPM Staghound kit. And at the time, it was the only one. I don't think Bronco had put out the 35th scale Staghound
Okay.
yet, and I'd like to do one of those at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, it is the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landing, and my grandfather was involved in the liberation of Holland, and
Oh,
I think
that's
he
awesome.
went. He was not first wave or anything like that, but he went through Normandy to get up there, and he was a Staghound driver in the 12th Manitoba Dragoons.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm banging this little guy out. It's man, does it ever take a lot of like extra strip styrene and just to get the pieces to fit? But I've been I've sort of been omitting it, but I've been working on it every month, a little as I go.
Awesome. All right, we are almost to an hour, and that's without the interview. So it's going to be a nice long show. So we're just going to finish up with our sights and tips. You had some exciting news from the Gundam world.
Yeah, and this sort of ties in a little bit what we were talking about earlier. So I just found, I'm not sure if this has been out very long, but Bandai has an official Gundam channel on YouTube. It's called Gundam Info, and they have a lot of great titles listed where you can watch the entire series.
Okay.
And so they recently, one of the latest productions for Gundam was called Mobile Suit Gundam: The Origin, and it was a 5-part series from 2015, beautifully animated, and it's a story that's set before the very first show that came out in '79. Now it's available on YouTube. It's in HD quality. They've got it in English dub or sub, so it's official. It's legitimate. It's got like proper subtitles, really good dub performances, and they've offered it in like Chinese, Korean, French. And so we were talking about, I love Gundam. I'm talking about it a lot. So I was sort of describing to Stuart earlier that when we talk about these models like Gundam and our Jar Jar that Ian's building and the different stuff I'm building, it's sort of like, whoa, what are you talking about? I don't get it. I understand that. So it's kind of like talking about, like, imagine a Star Wars ship and you've never seen the movie. So if you're looking for some really amazing animation, some science fiction, epic kind of war, political intrigue, go to YouTube for free. You can check this out in proper quality. And they have an amazing set of mobile suit designs that were from that show that got put out into really beautiful kits by Bandai. And it's a great watch, really cool story, and ties in beautifully to the other official sort of Gundam world stuff. And you can kind of see what's interesting and exciting about that science fiction subject. So it gives it a bit of context and just some great entertainment.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so we'll check that out. Also, we have a Facebook group called Scale Modeling Enthusiasts. And again, this is one you found.
Yeah, so this is a really neat page run by a friend of mine, Frank Blonsky, he's from the Buffalo area. And he's a real big car guy, and I know he actually makes some resin car models for sale. I'll have to look into that and see if I can promote him a little bit. But longtime modeler, great guy, and he put together this page specifically to post all the various shows coming out kind of in one place.
Right.
So he often has updates before anyone else about the latest and greatest shows, and we thought it's a really nice little page where you can get updated and see what's happening around.
Yeah, some pretty cool shows there, including the Western Canadian Regional Amps Model Show, Blitzkrieg in August. Yeah, all sorts of ones I haven't heard of before.
And I believe he's trying to cover North America, so I think he's trying to do everything in the States, where he's from, Canada, and I think Mexico. I don't know if he really delves into Europe or Asia or that kind of thing.
Okay, just going through here, I love this for a theme from the Hudson Valley Historical Miniatures Guild, their show theme. It's not supposed to be that color. Models other than in their intended color schemes. I love it.
The wrong German gray.
I love it. Just because it winds up rivet counters. Sorry, rivet counters, but most of you are good, but there's that small percentage that drive me nuts.
There's no such thing as an accurate olive drab, right? When you consider weather and the quality of the paint and the field application and the sun beating down on it.
Yes, okay. I wonder how many people are pissed off now.
Everybody's right.
Everybody's right. That's right. Hey, if you want to do it, that's great. If not, again, as long as you enjoy yourself. yourself. That's what's
Yeah.
great about this hobby. Okay, we got to go. This is another marathon show once again.
Woo.
So, as always, don't forget to subscribe. Let us know if you have any comments or suggestions. Always flip
We'd
us
love
an
to hear
email.
from you.
scalemodelpodcast@gmail.com. Yes, Virginia, it's that easy. It's recorded weekly. You can get it, or bi-weekly, sorry, available where your favorite podcasts are found, including iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. We have a Facebook page at facebook.com/scalemodelpodcast with always some good discussions going there. We do publish some extra video content sometimes. And again, as I mentioned, there's the Patreon page at patreon.com/scalemodelpodcast with another shout out to our latest Patreon supporter, Robert. We really appreciate all that you do. So my name is Stuart Clark.
This is Anthony Goodman.
Thank you and be well.